Good evening and welcome to Mindful Live 145. Hey, we're rhyming. Mindful Live 145. Yeah, it is the 2nd of November in the year of our Lord 2022. Yeah, the year is speeding on. It's nearly December. It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. You know, that the song that is always in my mind this time of the year. The days are getting shorter, the nights are getting cold. You just can't help it because every time I look outside at 6 o'clock and it looks like 8 o'clock, I'm like, wow, the season is upon us. The season is upon us. But it's not only Christmas season that is upon us, or that was upon us. Today is Wednesday, the middle of the week, and as you may be familiar with inside of the Mindful Live, Wednesday we have selected as our Tobago Day, where we talk about our sister isle because we reside in the Twin Island Republic, a beautiful place, a paradise called Trinidad and Tobago. Tobago is a part of our Twin Island Republic, so we can't just leave it out there. We talk about Tobago on Wednesdays, and today there's quite a bit to talk about on Tobago because Tobago recently had their carnival, their inaugural carnival. They did it alone. They went alone. They went over to Grenada to have a little influence from Grenada and learn something here and there, and then they hosted their own event. Now, it seems like the general idea is that the event was successful. Even with the rain, many of the patrons who went to it said it was successful, so I guess you'd have to take their word for it. But then again, really and truly, when it comes to fetting in an island like Trinidad and Tobago, all you need is to make sure that the fet happens, that the alcohol flows and the music flows, and generally it's a good event. So I guess there may be some other criteria to really judge exactly how good an event like this might be. So we're going to get into some of that. First up was the headline act of that weekend, which, I could understand the problem some people have with this. The headline act for the weekend was Burna Boy, the British Nigerian artist. I could understand the problem some people had with that because Tobago, when they were talking about, yeah, Burna Boy, Burna B Boy, yeah. When Tobago was talking about hosting this carnival, the initial idea about their carnival that they suggested when they were talking about it was a real cultural event, getting back to the roots and the culture inside of Tobago. And okay, but Burna Boy isn't exactly heavy into Tobago culture. I mean, it's Afrobeat. Tobago might have some African heritage several hundred years ago where many of their residents may have originally come from. But if you're talking Tobago culture, that's not exactly the main focus when you think about Tobago culture, at least not for me. And especially when you talk about the price that may have been paid. Nonetheless, many of the people who were there found that the performance that he put on was really good. They were impressed by the fact that he performed even in the rain. The showers came down, and nonetheless, Mr. Burna Boy was out there to perform for his fans, and they really enjoyed it. The Tomac organizer, Burna Boy fed off crowds' energy. Torrential rain, thunder, and lightning marred the grand finale of the Tobago Music and Cultural Festival, Tomac. But Grammy-winning Afrobeat star Burna Boy, inspired by his drenched but vibrant fans, lifted the dampened spirits at the Plymouth recreational grounds with an electrifying performance. Thousands ignored the Met Office's upgrade of the adverse weather alert from yellow level to orange, hoping the weather would hold up enough to enjoy the show. 2 hours into the concert, it was clear this was not going to happen. Rain fell throughout performances from soca stars Nyla Blackman, Ricardo Drew, and Sherwin Winchester. The concert started around 8 p.m. and by then hundreds were at the venue sheltering under umbrellas and tents. donning their best attire for the highly anticipated show. Some were seen wearing garbage bags, which they bought for $5 at the entrance gate, as vendors capitalized on the opportunities presented by the bad weather. The garbage bags were sold after umbrellas and raincoats were sold out. Listen, if only you could have predicted what was going to happen over there, there was serious business opportunity. You can imagine if you got a nice shipment of umbrellas, a box full. You went out there to sell. You could sell an umbrella $100 each. You know, in that kind of scenario where demand really outstrips supply, the price starts to go up. When considering that one garbage bag was going for $5. Listen, I think personally I'd just take my soak instead of buying a $5 garbage bag, but to each their own. By 10 p.m., the downpour became heavier, but the crowd grew larger. An hour-long interval between the last performance and the headline act left the crowd agitated, and eventually disgruntled chants of "Burner, burner" were eventually replaced by "Refund, refund." As DJ Music kept the show going without an announcement, one patron was heard saying they could at least come out and say what's happening instead of leaving us wondering if the show will go on. Scores of disappointed patrons eventually left the venue, but many stayed to get their money's worth. In something like this, I wonder, if you paid your full price for a ticket, right? You paid your good money for a ticket. And then because of the eventualities, you left before they came on. How would you feel? Because you may be leaving thinking that, you know what, I'll jump the crowd. I feel this man isn't going to perform anyway. I'll get a refund because of that. Let me leave and beat the crowd. And then you hear, well, actually, he did perform. You just left and missed that. You spent how much ever you spent on a ticket, and you left before the main performance. Oof, that's tough. Reminding all those again who just entered the live, if you're inside the live, make sure to hit that like button, double tap the screen. Over there on TikTok, we have those likes seeming like kind of novice numbers here. I noticed that of late, you know, the likes of late seem to be really lagging down there. In the early, sometimes with just 12 viewers, we had some of those likes in the tens of thousands. Now we have all the viewers here, and we're just sitting on the likes. Double tap that screen, allow it to feel your presence. Yes, hit that like button wherever you are viewing this. And as usual, we're streaming over on TikTok and Instagram and over on YouTube. If you are viewing this on any of the other platforms, feel free at any point in time. You could head over to my YouTube channel, Nathan Spring, over there on YouTube, and subscribe. You will be able to catch the lives that you missed. There are other videos also that are released on a relatively regular basis that you'd be able to take in. Good stuff over there. Nathan Springer over on YouTube. Yes. So, midnight had passed and the stage remained in darkness with instruments covered by polythene plastic. However, around 12:40 a.m., Burna Boy took the stage, much to the delight of his fans. Well, I'm not saying it, Nisi. I'm not saying it. Much to the delight of his fans. 12:40. That's nearly 1 o'clock. And if I remember correctly, they said this event started 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1. 5 hours. Like I mean, 5 hours. You have to really like Burna Boy. In my opinion, you have to really like Burna Boy to be sitting there or standing there 5 hours in the rain to catch him. But yeah, the energy of his performance sent the crowd wild. Forgetting their soaked clothes, hair, and shoes, Burna delivered hit after hit, including Tony Ann Singh's collaboration with Popcan, Jerusalema, Ye, For My Hand, the collaboration with Ed Sheeran, and Last, song after song, the crowd screamed in excitement, singing his lyrics word for word. Tammy over there on Instagram, Leora isn't the star of this show. Leora is relaxing. She is chilling. Burner told the crowd this was his first time in Tobago and he was excited to visit an island only heard about in the movies. Which movies are those? Even as the rain continued, he connected with his fans, performing for an hour to thrill his patient and appreciative fans. Burna Boy ended his performance just as 1:30 a.m. just at 1:30 a.m. with the same energy and hype he started with. Burner fed off of crowds' energy. Tomac organizer Arlene Lyons acknowledged the challenges with the weather, but felt satisfied with the overall outcome and the impact of the festival. In an interview with Newsday, she said, for the first time attempting to do something of this magnitude and significance, we are happy to have given this gift of Burna Boy to the people of Tobago. I wonder. I've been reading a lot of bad reviews about him, though. Well, I guess there are those, without a doubt. But I wonder if, you know, we really need to find a way to get some resources into this mindful operation so I could head over to Tobago and do some interviews. I'd like to do some interviews in Tobago. Ask the average Tobagonian, to pronounce it as the Tobagonians pronounce it. To ask the average Tobagonian, was Burna Boy a gift to you? Did you consider Burna Boy touching down on your island and singing for an hour, a little more than an hour? Did you consider that a gift? And I want, was that concert free for Tobagonians? Didn't the Tobagonians still have to pay to go to the concert? So you paid to go see your gift? Okay. So you paid to enter the concert and then paid because it's tax money paying him anyway. So you paid twice for that gift. Wow. That's a real good gift. Thank you. So kind of you to supply that gift for the people. To me, this is the organizer of the Tomac Festival. To me, it has been a very challenging and inspiring experience, and it's almost a perfect manifestation of the resilience and struggle of the African spirit. I feel like we have had to draw on that to be able to come to this point and pull off this event. We have had a lot of challenges, and some of them were natural, but some of them were ones that are put in front of us by people who may not have the best interest of what we were trying to do. She praised the crowd for the energy during Burna Boy's performance, which she described as scintillating. Okay. The crowd loved it. According to Burna Boy's team, it was one of his best performances. Listen, if I was on Burna Boy's team and y'all were paying me, of course I was telling you, this was one of his best performances, Be sure to invite us next year. When our fees may increase a little bit. Be sure. Like, of course. What do you think his team was going to say? Kelsey Batu says that's the argument, ancestral significance. I don't buy that. Kelsey Batu, British-based Nigerian performer, but okay. That's what I said at the very beginning. Like, okay, I understand that, yes, there is some African heritage inside of Tobago, as in Trinidad too, as in almost all of the islands in the Caribbean. Fair enough, accurate enough. But if you're talking about a real cultural link, you're going to get a British African, a British Nigerian. Like, many of the Afros on this western side of the world, one of the main points they like to point out is that one of the important shapers and movers in our present culture on this side of the world was the whole gruesome act that slavery was. For particularly the Africans, even though slavery, as many of us are, or at least are supposed to know, slavery extended way past just Africans. Africans weren't the only people enslaved on this planet. That's not true. But a big part of what shaped the culture and the history was slavery. And to be honest, an African immigrant to the United Kingdom wasn't someone whose ancestors felt the same struggle of slavery through the ages. Like, it's not taking away from anyone. Like, this isn't even the kind of discussion I overly enjoy having. But if we're being honest about this, you're trying to make cultural linkages here. That's a little different. You know, if you want to make some enemies, you might even talk about the fact that many of the Africans who remained on the mainland were some of the Africans who sold some of the other Africans into slavery across the Middle Passage to the New World. So, if you're talking cultural linkage there. So, all right, I understand the African link, but if you're really talking about going back to the roots of culture and history, I am not sure that is the one. But the lady, the organizer here, was saying that, it really tapped into the African strength and resilience, and that's what was needed for that festival. And his team said it was one of his best performances. He fed off the crowd. His team said he has never seen anything like this, where people in this kind of inclement weather give off so much energy. Sorry. And they said it was one of the things that inspired Burner to do a great performance. They said any other place might have cancelled the event with weather like what we had. Asked if Tomac considered cancelling the event as conditions worsened in the night, Leon said it was never an option, but there was a major concern whether or not Burner's team would want him to perform in those conditions. Now, if the alleged $3 million is accurate, I was performing in the rain. I'm just letting you know, for $3 million, rain is irrelevant. You may get me even in the snow, slight sleet, a little hail. Just make sure, we have something blocking the stage. A little hail, cool, 3 million. Yeah. Rain, so what? We'll buy some cough drops in the morning. Speaking to Newsday about their experience, patrons had mixed feelings. Adrian Howe of Shagwanas told Newsday, I enjoyed the show. The weather was out of our control, and if we put that aside, we would see how excellent this event would have been. Overall, I enjoyed it. Joshua Lashley told Newsday he felt disappointed with the time allotted to local performers. The soca artists should have performed longer. The festival said it's about culture. Soca is part of our culture. While I was here for Burna Boy, the circumstances needed soca to get people mind off the bad weather. Overall, though, there's someone here, Stephen Purity of Washington, D.C., said he only came to Tobago after reading a Newsday article on Burna Boy's scheduled performance. He was disappointed by the delay in Burna Boy hitting the stage. I paid for a concert that starts at 8 p.m., ends at 11 p.m., and it was after 12 a.m. That's the next day, so I left. They just keep saying he's coming for over an hour, and that wasn't reassuring. One woman said people standing in the rain was one thing, but having to wait for him was another thing. I left the venue at 12 when I was already on my way out. I hope they hold to their word when they promised the performer would be there. Listen, could you imagine if you're that guy who came from Washington, D.C.? You traveled all the way across the world, partially, to come to Tobago, to see Burna Boy, and leave before he came on. Listen, I would be very upset. I would be quite upset. Personally, me, I'll be upset. Nice. We're seeing the likes jumping up high inside of that TikTok live. That's what I like to see. Get those likes pumping over there. And if you are viewing this on YouTube also, even on the repeat, make sure to hit that like button. It does help. It adds it. It assists the algorithm in, pushing it out there to some more people. Now, with this rain, you might wonder, okay, well, maybe let's not host it in the rainy season next time. But according to the organizer, Trim, premature to shift Tobago Carnival out of rainy season. Tobago Carnival Committee Chairman Misha Trim has acknowledged that bad weather affected patronage at some events, including last Thursday's Tobago Music, Arts and Culture concert at the Plymouth Recreation Ground. With Burna Boy, we know that. But she said shifting the carnival from October to another month to minimize the likelihood of rainfall is not a consideration at this time. It is a bit premature. The pros and cons will come in and you have to weigh it, Trim told Newsday on Tuesday. Haha, told Newsday on Tuesday. And that's not incorrect. I could understand that because as I've heard, I believe I heard the NCC chairman, Mr. Gypsy, was speaking about that even before the carnival. You see, one of the problems they would be running up into right now is that carnival is becoming a global project. All around the world, everybody wants a carnival. Everyone has a carnival these days. The problem with that is that you kind of have to stagger it out throughout the year because one, the performers, the artists, would be there for multiple of these events, and if you want a specific artist there for your event, and there's another carnival going on in another part of the world, that would be a little more difficult. But so you would want to stagger the events, make sure you aren't hosting it at the same time someone else is hosting it. So in just moving the time, you could get some difficulty there. Trim said she's very pleased with the outcome of the island's inaugural carnival, given the time frame within which the community had to prepare. The Division of Tourism, Culture, Antiquities and Transportation announced the members of the committee in a press release on May. At that time, the division's line secretary, Tasha Burris, said she was hopeful that the committee would work to ensure that the island is strategically positioned for hosting of a vibrant, innovative carnival that will become a staple on the island's event calendar. And you see that word there? That's the word I was hoping would have been one of the real important words for Tobago's event. Innovative. Was it? Hey, Ria, look inside the house, Ria. What's up? What's up? I heard your live was going on. You all were discussing school books, textbooks out there. What's going on? You have so much to say. Well, you could jump in and say it, Ria. You could jump in and say it if you are so enthused to do. But yeah. And by the way, Ria, when you're talking in a live and you're talking school books, mindful education, pod learning, you could bring that up. It's not a problem. We have room. We still have room. We still have many classes that could, well, not many, but we still have some time slots that can be filled. So, yeah, if you're discussing school books over there, we are important in that discussion. Anyway, our terms of reference, this is the organizer speaking, our terms of reference spoke to the end of November. So we do have a month again to put together this report before we disassemble. So the committee has to put together a report still, and that report they have until the end of November to put together. So I guess when the end of November comes, we'll see really exactly how good the entire thing was. She is saying, however, based on initial reports, Trim said Tobagonians benefited economically from the carnival. From an economic standpoint, we gained. From a tourism standpoint, we marketed. But she said some areas will be revisited before next year's event. Now, that economic standpoint, I would really like to see how exactly they gain. That's something I would really like to see broken down, because we may know how much they spent in it, but how much income was brought into the island because of this? And then, where did the income go? Who got that money? So a point that she wanted to bring in there, yeah, we'll bypass that. Tobago Hoteliers Chamber Carnival a resounding success. So here's a question. This event, I believe the budget was something like 17.5, closing in on $8 million somewhere. 18 million somewhere up there. If the country, Tobago, Trinidad and Tobago, because Trinidad too, spent $18 million to host this event, and then you're saying from an economic standpoint, they gained. The Tobago Hoteliers Chamber Carnival a resounding success. Who gained would also be an important question in it. which sector of the Tobagonian economy was the sector that gained the most from this carnival? If it is just that the hoteliers and the larger business people, okay, 18 million was put out by the whole country, and then $20 million came in. And of that 20 million, 19 million went to just the wealthiest hoteliers and business people, and 1 million was split up among the common folk inside of Tobago. Would that really be considered a success, or is that relocating money? Are you just taking the money from the regular people in society? Are you just taking that money from them and then putting it out there to the wealthier ones? Is that what you're doing? Let me make sure that the mic here is set up for that. Yeah. So if you're talking, at least we'll have you picked up inside the area. We have, if you're hearing a voice over there on... Why are you so soft? I'm hearing you clearly now. Let me make sure that I'm picking...
On this profile, I can't use video, which sucks. But I have real plenty to say about this Tobago Carnival, and I don't mean to sound like a hater, but my first point is, I understand Tobago. You see, I need to see me, okay? To make sure there's no boogers in my nose, okay? I understand Tobago's objective, that they want to have things attracting tourists to them even outside of their quote-unquote busy season, whether it be July, August vacation for them or Christmas for them. I'm not even sure what is Tobago's busy season. Easter probably, who knows? But they're trying to get persons to visit Tobago as a tourist destination regardless of the time of year. Earlier in the year, they have jazz, they have heritage, they have this, they have that. Okay, fine, no problem. They're looking for something later in the year to draw them into Tobago, right?
Yes.
I think theming it as Tobago's Carnival is where I have the issue for multiple reasons. Because, one, knowing that Carnival is a historical and cultural event, is it that Tobago's Carnival is historically and culturally representing Trinidad and Tobago, just Tobago, or what parts or elements of it are you using? Considering that every year, during the February-March period, we actually have the National Carnival everything. So when it is you come and have National Carnival everything at a certain time for both Trinidad and Tobago, and then come back in October for Tobago specifically to have some of these exact same things, the purpose is what?
That was part of my question also, because I was noting, to me, as far as I know, during the main carnival of Trinidad and Tobago in February, there and thereabouts, isn't there a Tobago leg of that carnival too? When there's carnival, isn't there carnival in Tobago also?
Tobago is included in multiple ways, in that in the national stuff, they are there, and they also have things for Tobago.
Exactly.
So, Tobago is included in the national panorama, but there's also a Tobago panorama.
Correct. Correct. And that was my point. And that's why I said in this, when I was speaking about this previously there, the original intent of the Tobago Carnival was to be innovative. And they said they went to Grenada as part of that, to really get some ideas on how to be innovative with this whole thing. They don't want to, just be the regular same thing that you see of all the carnivals. And okay, that actually made some sense. They were talking a more cultural line. But then this is basically the same cookie cutter carnival that everywhere in the world has. We saw some Tobago band leaders last week. I spoke about that. They were upset. They were saying that the carnival is the same bikini and beads thing, and yeah, it is. It is just about the same carnival that is everywhere in the world. So, what's the difference?
I get it that they want something at that point in the year to draw people in, but don't name it carnival, especially with that word innovative. Name it something else. Dog, it have enough committee always coming up with weird names for parties. Let one of these people come up with a weird name for 2 weeks of events or a week of events. That's, it's whatever you want to call
Well,
it.
I believe they branded it for the most part. For the most part, they branded it as Tomac. So people were calling it Tobago Carnival, but I believe the branding they were using was Tumac. The problem is, I think regardless of what you call it, if it's in that nature, they're going to call it Tobago Carnival. Hey, look, the Tobago Carnival. That's kind of just what very likely is going to happen. If they want to rebrand it, I think they actually need to rebrand it. And the strange thing to me is Trinidad and Tobago is probably overpopulated by marketing strategists and brand consultants and all that kind of area of people. Are you trying to tell me no one could have come up with something at least a little creative to make this whole thing seem at least a little more like Tobago's own unique thing? I struggle to see why that was a problem. However, I could give Tobago some points because even if it is just a generic carnival, there was some positive in it. The senior superintendent in charge of it said no arrests at perfect Tobago Carnival. Tobago senior superintendent Junior Benjamin has said no arrests were made during the island's inaugural carnival celebrations. The festivities, we know that in an interview with Newsday on Tuesday. Benjamin said everything went according to plan. No one was locked up for anything at all. There was police presence all over. It was as perfect as can be. Now, you see that? That is something that Tobago might actually be able to brand. If you could have a carnival, something like a carnival, and it is the safest one in the world because, by and large, anything like a carnival anywhere in the world, Miami, New York Labor Day, the one in the United Kingdom, Trinidad Carnival, by and large, those are times of heightened crime. If with Tobago's smaller nature, you are somehow able to host that event year in, year out, and continue with it being like this, that in and of itself, I could assure you would be a branding highlight. That's something they could probably hold on to. Tobago has the safest jump up for the year. Maybe that's their
I don't
rebrand.
think that has anything to do with the fact that it's the first.
It may have to do with the fact that it's the first, but I think it's the fact that Tobago might be easier to police by and large. That might have some to do with it too. Tobago by and large is easier to police than Trinidad. It's a smaller location, and it's a location that if you commit a crime in Tobago during a time like that, where there's also heightened police presence, it might be much more difficult to escape. So Tobago has some benefits because of its size too. That's things they can use, I would think, in the future. Those are things that they would be able to use. However, even in this one, Tobago made some serious weird wrong steps. THA's Rockley Bay stage paved, EMA approval still pending. These people pave piece of a thing jutting out into the sea with no environmental management approval of it. Managing Director of the EMA, Hayden Romano, says the authority is in discussions with Tobago House of Assembly about the construction of a stage in the sea. Last week, Romano told Newsday infrastructural projects, including a stage in the sea at Rockley Bay, Tobago, were being done without certificates of environmental clearance. Chief Secretary Farley Augustine had assured the public the stage is environmentally safe and will be a permanent structure which can host future public street parties and cultural items. Question about the lack of EMA approval, THA Infrastructure Secretary Trevor James had said, "What we are trying to do is host a carnival in a few weeks. We at the Assembly are trying to execute these works in short order, and sometimes as a state agency, we believe it might be challenging to go through every single step that is required. If that has to be done, then we won't be able to accomplish all we set out to do." Now, listen to this. I find that statement insulting to the entirety of the country. These rules that everyone else has to follow if they have to do something on their own, someone who is hired by the country as an official agent of the country is saying that if they have to go through all of these steps, they would never be able to get it done. So are you saying that the amount of steps that the average person has to go through to get these things done makes them impossible for makes it impossible for them to do their own things too. So when a promoter has to do their own business, is it that they should be able to bypass the EMA's steps too? Like, I don't understand that excuse. And when you look at what they built, that's something serious. Tobago is already talking about they're struggling with coastal erosion. They filled up a piece out into the coast, out into the sea, and paved it, made a stage out of it. Those aren't things you do lightly. Those aren't things you just do lightly. I remember watching in Tobago because as I've said numerous times, I do some contracting. I have some experience in that. When I went to Tobago, by that Tobago sign there, welcome to Tobago, whatever, I love Tobago, whatever the sign is. And I go out where it is touching the sea. And I watch how they built it. There's steel inside of the structure, but the steel goes to the end of the concrete. And if anyone knows anything about what happens when salt water touches steel, it's not a pretty picture. The sea is going to reclaim that whole thing eventually. So, what's going to happen there? And even with something like this, you just built this out there jutting into the sea and you got no EMA approval. Who is to say that the sea isn't going to reclaim this in 2 years' time? And then you'd have spent all these millions of dollars for what, 2 years of a stage? And the stage isn't even all that beautiful, if we're being very honest about it. Duke, the head of their party, is disagreeing with the whole carnival business. Duke to THA apologize for failed carnival. Assemblyman Watson Duke has identified the real winners and losers of Tobago Carnival. In a Facebook video on Monday, Duke said TH's secretaries benefited the most from the October 28th to 30th festival. They were the real winners. After all, who else got free tickets, free food, free fat? They were the winners. When I compare what the people of Tobago had to go through, I would say they were the losers. When you look at the amount of money they had to spend to go to a Burna Boy fete, some $800 to $2,000 a ticket. When they go there, some have to walk in barefoot because the place muddy. They have to stand up in the rain with their umbrellas. Some still reeling from cold, fever. Duke said the inaugural carnival was a failure as heavy rain caused a number of events to bust. The whole carnival thing, failure, failure, failure. All you must count all your losses. Hang all your head in shame and apologize to us. Or you're not listening. Like the foolish man who built his house in the sun. You build a carnival in the rain. I'm sorry.
I honestly think Duke is being bitter because of whatever. I don't disagree with the idea of having something. I just don't think they should brand it as carnival. Because even with Burna Boy coming, if it is you want to say, just like with Tobago Jazz, how it is they target international artists to bring them there, that is something that you can use to your advantage. You can legit use that. But when did you market it as carnival? You put the I do me to song back. Patrice wasn't wrong when it is you went up on stage and made the statement.
We're going to get to Patrice just now. Because bear in mind, Patrice wasn't in Tobago when she said that. That wasn't Tobago even. So we're going to get to that. And I think you're 100% right on that, just by the way. If you're bringing artists like Burna Boy, I see it like a convent girl by Burna Boy. Yeah, if you're bringing artists like Burna Boy, how are you going to call it carnival? How are you going to call it that kind of cultural event? It seems like more of an international music kind of event, which is fine, which might be, which might actually be a better avenue for Tobago to go down. Who knows? But let's finish what Duke is saying, and I don't doubt that he is partially bitter too. But to be fair, a lot of what Duke is saying here is what he was saying all along in terms of his political, the lane of politics that he drives down. That's the side of politics he has been talking about all the time. The best for Tobago. He wants to see the best for Tobago. Tobagonians must get the best out of this. And I think it's a fair question and a fair critique to ask how much directly did the common Tobagonian benefit from this entire event? Was it something that the regular Tobagonian benefited from? Now, they thank Trinidadians just by the way because Trinidadians went over in droves. The hoteliers are happy. The Trinidadians who like to fete are happy. The business people over there are happy. But the average Tobagonian, the average person, how much did they actually benefit from that? And that's the line that Duke is going down on, which is, I think, a fair one. Duke said everything was a disaster, as he noted the blackouts in several parts of the island on the night of the Burna Boy concert. Like that. That's something I didn't know. It seems like Burna Boy's concert took some electricity from certain parts of the island. Oh gosh, Ali, the weather was against them. In 5 years, Tobago Carnival going to be one of the best. I don't doubt that. I don't doubt that. But in doing a post-mortem and a critique, you talk about the negatives. That's where you focus on. Was it that the Fed took out all the electricity, or TNTech worked especially hard to ensure that place stayed lit while Scarborough and environs was shrouded in darkness? That's a good question. He said the $17.5 million spent by the THA on the carnival was wasted. When we look at the amount of money spent on the carnival, the THA secretaries, they're spending money like water for carnival in the rainy season. He also criticized the $20 million contract awarded to a Trinidadian company to construct a road. The roads were officially opened last Friday. Now tell me, what kind of traffic Tobago have that cannot be dissipated within a 10-20 minutes when you see traffic bad? Is somebody park up bad? Some truck coming off the boat? How that road benefit when most of the carnival was not in Scarborough, but in Crown Point and elsewhere? So he is critiquing how exactly the money was spent. Rain came again in the carnival, and some of those landslides, they have rampant landslides over in Tobago, got worse and blocked roads. He said the Tobago Emergency Management Agency reported 12 roads were blocked during the carnival. Duke also took another swipe at the controversial stage in the sea at Rockley Bay, Scarborough. How much people dance on that stage in the sea? How beautiful it was. Is it something that resembles the statue of Christ, Cristo Redentor in Brazil, the iconic figure of the Eiffel Tower, or some beautiful thing like the Statue of Liberty? This stage in the sea, was it a work of art that says, look at what we have done, composed by this? He said the location of the stage in the sea, next to the I Love Tobago sign, was another faux pas, as it pales in comparison. Now Carnival finished, what will it be used for? For cars to turn around? What was the speed? What was the urgency that you didn't even get EMA clearance? Now, as many people pointed out, well, not many people, as Rhea pointed out, he does sound a bit bitter, and I don't doubt that some of this is bitterness. I don't doubt that at all. But the man is making a good point. Even beyond the bitterness, look at the point he is making. If you are going to do something like this, where you're saying, I am going to bypass the EMA, I'm going to ignore the environmental agency, we need to get this done. Well, at least make sure the thing is something that's going to look good for the long run. That come next 10 years, it's something that you could look back and say, that was still a good sacrifice made. Duke does always make sense when he outside the club. I like that one, Rhea. I like that one, Rhea. Duke does make sense when he outside the club. Well, outside the club might be his specialty. Maybe Duke is a man never to be let into the club. He's a man always to keep outside the club, because when he outside there is when he makes the most sense. Learn your calling. Learn your calling and your purpose in life, people. Maybe your purpose is never to be in governance, but just always an opposition figure where you could point out and critique the wrongs of the government. Who knows, Mr. Duke? That might just be the reality.
So, Nathan, here's my question. Right? Seeing that Tobago would like this particular time of year to be branded as theirs, whatever celebration they want, is it that they are asking to be excluded from regular national carnival?
No. Someone spoke about that.
Have carnival twice per year?
Someone spoke about that when they spoke about thanking Trinidadians for coming over. They said they're not trying this whole separation thing. It's not about separation. It's about self-determination. That same kind of weird thing that nobody fully understands what they mean. But I think what they're talking about is this Tobago Carnival will be Tobago's own. This is Tobagonians planning this, Tobagonians hosting this. It's Tobago unique. while the carnival in February is Trinidad and Tobago's carnival. It's the national carnival. So this is a unique thing. So as Point 14 would have their, it's borrowed down Point 14 too, and Arima would have theirs, Tobago has their own unique thing that's separate from all of that.
Wait, but you see, that is where the conflict for me lies, because even when there is the National Trinidad and Tobago Carnival, as I said, Tobago does have separated carnival events from Trinidad.
Yes, but
So,
even in that, it's like this. It's like this. I was using the Point 14 and the Arima example. During Trinidad and Tobago Carnival in February, Arima hosts a carnival event. There's a parade. Is there a parade in Arima? I think there might be a parade in Arima. While there's separate from that the Arima Borrow Day, where they host their own separate celebrations. And I understand the point you are making. If they are going to do the same thing that was done in February, then it kind of doesn't make sense. You're just doing two of the same thing in the year. But even still, I mean, if they're making money, they probably decide, well, I could do it every month if I'm making money. But as Sir asks, that's an important question there. Can they afford it? What was the profit margin in this? You paid so much money to host this event. Did you accumulate? Were you able to make back all of that money that you spent? That, I think, is probably even beside the cultural aspect and all of that. When you're looking at this on a serious economical standpoint, that's the important thing. And the last point that Mr. Duke makes here, I think points in even with the point you're making there, and in terms of how unique this whole thing is, how separate it is. He also criticized Augustine, who is the THA chief secretary, for posting pictures on his Facebook of soca stars Aaron Voice St. Louis Voice and Vincentian Skinny Fabulous. Them guys big in the dance. What about the little Tobagonian who looking for a little forward? He said the PDP's mandate was to put Tobagonians on a pedestal, and Augustine was not doing this. And I understand and partially agree with that point. The premise of the Tobago Carnival, when it was initially brought forward, was, bear in mind, the PDP itself was a party that was made with that mentality and that notion that it's about Tobago and Tobagonian business. And okay, if it's about Tobagonians, shouldn't it be that this festival is a display of Tobagonians to the world? We have to figure out what it is we're trying to put forward here. Well, at least Tobago has to figure that out. What is it that they're trying to put out there for people? Is it that you want to put Tobago on display for people, or is it that Tobago is a venue and you invite the world to come and view an international concert in Tobago? Because those aren't the same thing. If you're just looking for Tobago as the venue, then you're making money a different way. If you're looking to market Tobago as the product, then you're looking to put Tobago in a different way still. Those aren't the same thing. And the idea initially seemed like it was more a Tobago as the product thing, while now it seems more a Tobago as the venue thing.
Here's the thing about it, though, Nathan. And this is why I don't mean to sound bad. I know that putting Tobago at the forefront of everything was the mandate of the PDP, but this is why it's not going to work. Sorry, not sorry. Unless you have already established yourself, putting people who's nobody to perform with to attract nobody. In any business you have, it takes a while before you break even. Let me give that estimate as at 2 years. Let's say it takes average 2 years to break even, right? The problem we all have with government is that their books could never line up. How you could tell me that you're spending, let's say, $50 million and you cannot show me that you're making 15 million. Even if it is, you say, in this year we'll spend 15, next year we'll spend 18, but by year 3 we'll be making 3 times that. So, there's no forward thinking for us to get the justification of the expenditure now or next year, whatever the case is. But if it is even now, when it is you are not breaking even, and you have these quote unquote hard hitters who are coming in, who have established careers, who have their following and whatnot, then if these people who are coming in still not helping you break even, what you going to get a person who don't have nothing or who have 1,000 followers on Instagram and 2 tracks on SoundCloud, when that person comes to perform on a stage, who going to buy tickets to see him? Who is him with the goat in his backyard?
I understand, Ria. I understand totally what you're saying, but those are two different things. And I see what I'm saying is they need to decide and make it clear which one they're doing. Here's the thing: an international event where you host international artists that, as you say already, have their fans. A man says he traveled all the way from Washington D.C. to come and see Burna Boy. Grand. That's an issue. That's something that could do something great. But how much would that attract? Because Burna Boy, if I am someone in the United States, I could wait till Burna Boy reaches closer to me and go see a Burna Boy event. I could go see Burna Boy in London. I could go see Burna Boy when he's in the Cayman Islands or anywhere else. He's an international artist. However, that little youth man with the goat in his backyard is something unique to only Tobago. If Tobago is able to market that as something desirable to people, then they are much more uniquely positioned to be the only place that hosts such an event. If you're talking about your unique Tobago-ness, then you have to go that direction. Now, I don't deny that that direction is much more difficult. You have to put more thought into it. You have to plan better. But also in that direction, the initial cost is going to be much lower. They have to build a rep first. I don't disagree. But how would you build a rep if you're building a rep with international artists? If you build a rep with international artists, you can't change that next year to the Tobagonian guy with the goat in his backyard. You can't have people expecting Burna Boy and then they come meet Mr. Tobago. That's not how that works. If you bring the international artists, well, that's the expectation that festival is going to have. If you bring the local artists, well, then that's the expectation that festival is going to have. And what PDP said originally was that their intention was to put Tobago on the map. So if you're saying that Tobago has talent and Tobagonians have the talent to do this and do that, I don't doubt you. Well, show us that. Show us the Tobagonians with that talent. And if you're saying that Tobagonians do not have that kind of talent to put on such a show, then make that clear and let it be known that what we're looking to do is host another international event and put one on the calendar at this point in time. It's a Tobago Jazz Festival Part 2. And okay, understandable. But yeah, let's make it clear. Let's cut that line pretty clear. Now, Burna Boy seemed like he enjoyed his time in Tobago a little too much. Greetings, SM Resources, and good night, Stars Juliet. He seems like he enjoyed his time in Tobago a little too much because he was late for his next performance. My boy was supposed to be out there in Dominica, and the Dominicans had some problems because my boy come in a day late. Dominica Prime Minister, the whole Prime Minister had to make a statement on this. Blames Burna Boy for late to WCMF performance. Dominica Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerrit is very clear that the blame for Damini Burna Boy Ebunoluwa Ogulu not appearing as he was originally scheduled at the 3-day World Creole Music Festival on Saturday night does not rest with the organizers or his country's government. Skerrit says the blame for missing the scheduled time lies squarely with the artist, and also rubbish claims that the weather was to blame for the artist arriving so late. He had to perform on Sunday instead, a day later than scheduled. Listen. According to the Prime Minister out there in Dominica, they moved everything around. They were willing to open their airport 24 hours. He contacted the Prime Minister of Antigua, the Prime Minister of Barbados. They were willing to charter a flight and pay for the fare for that chartered flight just to get Mr. Burna Boy there. But Mr. Burna Boy showed up a day late. Unfortunately for them, he showed up a day late. He was supposed to be there on Saturday. He ended up performing on Sunday. Now, that little show up a day late business caused quite a bit of bacchanal because people were supposed to be performing on Sunday during the time that they put Burna Boy in. During Burna Boy's time that he took on Sunday when he was supposed to be there on Saturday, some people were supposed to be performing. And Burna Boy came in and pushed them back. What was he doing? I'm not sure what he was doing. He was probably celebrating after that easy 3 million he made out there in Tobago. The easiest 3 million he made in a long time. He had to, probably celebrate a little bit. I don't know what Homeboy was doing, but he was late. The artist that was supposed to perform was one Miss Patrice Roberts. And she did not take lightly to this. I don't know how many of you saw the video, but I'm going to play the video over there on my YouTube. If you're listening this on YouTube, you'd be able to... Ooh, that's doubling up volume there. If you're listening on YouTube, you'd be able to see the video as I'm going to play it over there too. Once it loads up. Miss Patrice...
Yes. The plan out we have been. It was to perform for you long time ago. But you know what? I paid $3 million to somebody who ain't nothing wrong.
Just a side note, I know some of you aren't watching the video. If you're over on YouTube, you'd be watching the video, and you could head over there at any point in time in the future and subscribe to my YouTube channel, Nathan Spring. Over there, there are multiple videos. You could catch up on the lives, etc. But for those of you who are watching, I'm trying to phrase this properly. I remember Patrice Roberts when she first came out. And I'm not even talking about the accusations of the decreasing amount of melanin in her skin. I'm not even talking about that reduction of melanin that seems pretty obvious to any onlooker. But even the silhouette of the lady right now, the shape of the lady is a totally different shape. A totally different shape. The lady is shaped. By the way, just on that note, I think I was reading recently today that Lady Spice is in a coma in the Dominican Republic after undergoing some plastic surgery that didn't go all according to plan. She is in a coma right now, allegedly. That's the report I'm seeing on the internet. Spice is in a coma. And I know she has at least one child. That's really tough. I hope she pulls through, really and truly. But to suffer that on cosmetic surgery, that's really tough. I'm not going to get into much on that. But that kind of cosmetic work seems to be pretty clearly done on Sugar Boy over there. Yeah, you relax yourself.
There's one twin. Next time, give me the $3 million. I know.
Patrice says that next time give her the $3 million because she mash up the place way more than the other person they gave the $3 million to. She mash up the place more, so give her the $3 million instead. Now, I find it just kind of coincidental that right after minding Burna Boy's business, she went on to sing Drink Water and Mind Your Business. How much money Burna Boy was paid, isn't that his business? Like, I see some people criticizing Burna Boy for that. Like, personally, I have no criticism for him on that note, Listen, if you are able to make the money, sir, you make your money. Call your price. That's Tobago's fault if Tobago decided that they wanted to pay him that money. The man called his price. If they decided to pay it, that's on them. You can't be upset with the man for calling his price. He called his price and they paid it. If they paid it, that seems to suggest that they think he is worth that price. He is calling that price. If they don't think you're worth that price, well, I read that he was rude and cursed out patrons. Well, I wasn't there. I don't know. I don't know that. I don't know that. But um, what do you think about that? Do you think they should have paid that 3 million to the local soca artists instead? Do you think that the local soca artists would have been able to do just about the same thing? So how much Dominica paid him? I don't know. I really don't know how much Dominica paid him. Burna Boy only make it this big because of TikTok, and I don't doubt that either. But I mean, that's the nature of the way how the thing goes. So Justin Bieber only made it that big because of YouTube. He started off on YouTube, and that's the nature of how it goes. You think they made back that money? I don't know. They're saying they made good on the economic side. I don't doubt that, but I don't know. I think that's difficult. If you're talking about the event itself, I highly doubt that. I'm pretty sure that event did not gross over 3 million in profit afterwards. I'm pretty sure that's not what happened there.
Can I ask a serious question?
Yeah.
Somebody who follows like trends and celebrities and stuff. Can I just ask, what is Burna Boy famous for exactly?
Singing, music, Afrobeat music. Now, you see, it's a wave also. There's a wave.
Is he a good artist? Is he, sorry, a good performer or just a good
Yeah,
artist?
yeah. He is both. As someone commented, someone.
As a good performer.
Yeah, this is what I was going to say. As someone noted in the initial article, they found that the performance, they got the same quality as on YouTube. And this is a problem. The Nigerians were roasting Patrice over that comment there. The Nigerians were roasting her on Twitter. They were like, oh, they're singing like a worship service. So she hosting a worship service and yada yada. Why is she screaming? Why is she shouting? And that's part of the problem. I find many of the times when you go to an event and you hear soca artists sing, they sound like they're screaming the song. They don't song. The song does not sound the same live as it would recorded. The same for many of those dancehall artists. Many of them cannot sing at all. They can't hold a key. The only reason the Trinidad singing bad is because of auto-tune. Them fellas don't know how to sing on key. Some of them. And Burna Boy can actually sing, can actually perform. When you hear him live, the live performances are relatively good. They're about the similar quality as you'd hear from the recorded versions. He has energy in his performance. I mean, Afrobeat and African performing, yeah, there is some good to his performance. He is a good artist. He's a good performer. I like his music. Afrobeat music is also on a wave right now where it's gaining popularity throughout the world. And he has some crossovers and that he has some crossovers and that he did his marketing and his features well. He has features with Ed Sheeran, also features with Popcorn, so he has that Caribbean link. So he's crossed over to quite a few different markets. He's in the pop market, he's in the Afrobeat market, he's in the hip hop market, he's in the Caribbean dancehall market. So because of that, he is very popular in that realm. So yeah, I wouldn't criticize him as an artist like that. He is a quality artist. He isn't a fly-by-night something. The man has quality. I don't know if it's 3 million worth of quality. Listen, the 3 million might make sense for him because that same performance he put out there, maybe if you had a stadium big enough, he could have filled that stadium and easily made back that money for you on that 3 million price. But it's like, okay, who might be the biggest, one of the biggest artists in the world right now? Drake. Let's say Drake is coming down to Trinidad and his fee might be 5 million PT dollars. If he is able to perform in Wembley Stadium in the United Kingdom, in England, if he's able to perform in Wembley Stadium and sell it out, they will easily make back that money because of the amount of people that could fit in that stadium, the amount of people that could attract. But if you invite him for a bazaar down in I was going to say a place in South, but let's not victimize South. If you invite him for a bazaar down in Grandy, you have a bazaar you're holding in a car park in Grandy, and you invite Drake, and you're paying him $5 million. Even if Drake attracts people that fill out the entire car park and overflow into the road, you will never be able to make back that money. So the question about that the question about whether it makes sense paying that also depends on how much you are able to recoup based on the nature of the event also. And I'm not sure the nature of the event that they hosted was even it would have even been possible to make that back. To you, to us, Livy says, to us, Patrice is like everyday burner boy would be more appealing. I would think so. Two, is it 3 million US? Because if it's TT, then it's not bad. Let's be real here. It's TT, I believe it. I think it was 500,000 US. So, leave me alone. Yo, Chelsea lately being late as usual. What's the surprise there, Chelsea lately? We're talking Tobago, the Tobago Carnival, and a bit of a post-mortem on that Tobago Carnival. I saw a question also over there on Instagram. Is the discussion about what was he worth or the price he was paid? I don't know which. We're kind of discussing both the price he was paid compared to what he was worth. And to me, in terms of what he was worth, that's a hard discussion to think. US, it was 500,000 US. It was 3 million TT, I believe, as in converting from the US to TT. 3 million US is ridiculous. That's no one is making 3 million. Well, let me just say no one. But I highly doubt anyone is really making 3 million US on one performance like that. That would be scary. No problem, Belsy one. One other thing on the Tobago news, moving away a little bit from the Tobago Carnival. One other issue we're going to cover in Tobago. Now, for those of us who were in the Tobago live last time, we spoke about the bacchanal going on in Tobago with contracts. Contracts seem to be causing a bit of a furor right now in Tobago. The Tobago House of Assembly is handing out contracts pretty widely, and who the contracts are going to is a matter of contention of late. Company mom, listen to this article, listen well. THA defends road contract for Trinidad roofing contractor. The managing director of a Trinidad-based roofing and construction company that was awarded a multi-million-dollar road contract in Tobago has chosen to remain mum on how his company was invited to tender for the project. Newsday contacted John Chidi of Innovative Roofing and Construction Solutions Limited about his company's $54,781,000 contract for the construction of the Milford Court Pigeon Point Connector Road and was told to contact the THA. Pressed about the award of the contract, Cheney repeated that he was not answering any questions on it, saying he was asked to tender and had been successful. Asked about the company's history of roadworks, given that its name implied it was involved in roofing and construction, Cheney said, and I'm quoting here according to the Newsday. The Newsday alleges that Mr. Cheney said, "Sir, you heard what I just told you? English language hard for you Negro reporters to understand?" Yeah, so that allegation is out there. That the person we don't worry, SM Resources, we're going to dig further. We're not leaving it at this. Don't worry, we're not leaving it at this. But the allegation from the Newsday reporter who was on the phone with him, they're saying that the man told them that, well, asked them if English language hard for you Negro reporters to understand. Listen, when I read that, I was like, I doubt this man said that, because that would be very unwise, being that you're looking for a contract in Tobago. I mean, if we're talking about the demographic makeup of the islands, Tobago is not the place you want to seem like you have some dislike for Negro people. That's an unwise move. And of course, that precipitated some more things. THA chief probing alleged racist comment by Trinidad-based contractor. Chief Secretary of the Tobago House of Assembly has announced that an investigation has been launched into a newspaper report of alleged racist comments by one of its contractors. The announcement was made in a press release issued on Monday at the end of Tobago's carnival season. According to the release, the probe began on Friday, the same date the article was published in Trinidad and Tobago Newsday. We know what the article alleges. In response, the THA said, so far, the Executive Council is advised that the matter may attract some legal action. As a result, due diligence must be taken before the THA acts. Notwithstanding, Chief Secretary Augustine considers this allegation a serious moral and ethical infringement. The THA is prepared to go as far as terminating the contract once the alleged statement is duly verified. Such verification is expected by Tuesday, November 1st, 2022. So we'll see where that goes. That was a $50 million contract too. I wonder if he got paid yet. No, he isn't paid yet, just by the way, sir. These are the contracts that we were talking about last week. The THA is doing these contracts because they don't have enough money in their coffers to pay the contractors one time. So how they're doing these contracts is they're allowing the contractors to sponsor it, to pay for it, and they would pay the contractors bit by bit over time. So, yeah, it's not like they're paid yet anyway. You have to do the contract yourself and then be paid in time. And I don't think they even started work on that contract yet, as far as I know. However, there's a balance to this. Contractor denies being racist to sue reporter and daily for libel. The Managing Director and Project Manager of Innovative Roofing and Construction Services, John Michael Chady, has sent a pre-action protocol letter to senior journalist Jensen Levend and Daily News Limited, the publishing house for the Trinidad and Tobago Newsday. Chady is being represented by attorney at law Rondell Donowa. According to the legal letter dated November 1st, Levend and Daily News Limited have 14 days to respond before the matter is escalated to the High Court. On October 28th, the Newsday, we know what they allege. In a press release on Monday, the THA said it would investigate the matter. However, Chady is hoping to clear his name and denies making any racist statements during the conversation. His lawyer also dismissed the article as malicious, and false. It is critical to note that Mr. Chady's wife is of African descent. I'm interested to see that, just by the way, because African descent is many people, just by the way. Mr. Chady's family lineage represents both African and East Indian origin. My client vehemently denies referring to the reporter and or reporters as Negroes and categorically states that he said Newsday reporters. The alleged transcript of the conversation provided by Chady's lawyer is as follows, and we're not going to read the whole discussion. The last question, just one more question from the reporter. Mr. Levin says, just one more question, because I was watching the name of the company and Innovation Roofing Solution, but the work is roadworks. I just want to know if you have any history in roadworks. And allegedly, from Mr. Chady's lawyers, the words that were actually said were, sir, you heard what I just told you? Is English hard for you Newsday reporters to understand? He said, is English hard for you Newsday reporters to understand? That's what he said instead of Negro, allegedly. Now, I don't know. I wasn't there. As far as the lawsuit is going to go, I don't know how anyone is going to win that lawsuit unless they have a record of this transcript. If this is just he say, she say, I don't know how any of that is going to be proven. He says he said Newsday reporters, and the Newsday reporter says he said Negro reporters. Like, how are you going to prove that in a court of law, one way or the other? I don't know how that proof is going to happen. However, I think that was an unwise statement regardless. Is English language hard for you newsday reporters to understand? That's strange. In the first place, if a reporter called me, that tone just doesn't seem like a recommended tone to have with a reporter who's going to write a story about you. That just doesn't seem like a sensible tone to have. But like, I'm reading this and I'm trying to figure, if this is something I'm going to tell someone, would I specify newsday reporter? Like, I don't know. And it could very well be newsday reporter. It could, yes, I know Shamfa had that tone, and we're not surprised about that. Shamfa is her own case. I wasn't there. It could very well be that the reporter heard wrongly. But does specifying newsday reporter in a statement like this even make sense? Does that add up to you? Like, if you were to say something like this, would you have mentioned, is English language hard for you newsday reporters to understand? Like, I'm thinking in a Trini way, if I'm going to, we saw it in English hard for you to understand. Like, that's how you would say that. English language hard for all you to understand. That's what you'd, English language hard for you to understand. Like, would you really go out of the way to specify newsday reporters? Like, does that seem likely? You're on the phone and you're like, so English language hard for you all newsday reporters to understand? Like, to me, that just doesn't seem something that grammatically rolls off the tongue as easy. That seems something like you generally just say all your English language hard for all you to understand. Why you would specify newsday reporters? Like, for me to understand this, possibly there might be some more context to it. Maybe newsday reporters specifically have been harassing the man for the last year. Newsday has been particularly harassing the man, so this call was just the last straw, and that's why he specifically pointed out newsday reporters. But if it's one phone call from one reporter asking a couple questions, why? To me, it's just, I don't know. I just don't understand that. Why would you specify newsday reporters? Very interesting. I hope they get to the bottom of that. That would be quite interesting over there in Tobago. And very unwise if it is indeed that he said what the newsday reporter alleges. SM Resources says it depends on how that interview was going. If they're harassing him, then why do the interview? That's what I'm saying. I don't know. I don't know the facts of the matter. But to specify newsday reporters from one interview, and even the transcript that his lawyer provided, that was how many questions in? 1 question, 2 questions, 3. That was the 4th question. Like, the conversation just started. 1 question, Mr. Chady responds. 2 questions, Mr. Chady responds. 3rd question, Mr. Chady responds. And on the 4th question, you say you newsday reporters don't understand English. Like, who knows? I just don't know. Maybe the guy was having a bad day too. It could be a whole confluence of circumstances. The man was having a difficult day. It was a trying day. They lost a contract. Some of the workers were giving trouble. And then Newsday was only calling him and ringing down his phone. Probably his assistant told him that Newsday trying to call him. Sup, what's going on, Prince Vans? Yeah, maybe his assistant told them Newsday only calling down your phone, but and we tell them that you don't want to give no comment. And he spoke to a Newsday reporter yesterday, and then on top of it, today is such a stressful day, and he didn't get enough sleep last night, and all of these combination of factors, and that's what went on there. But just on the surface level, I'll say that whole thing just doesn't really add up, at least not to me. I don't understand the point in that. Anyway, that's all I have for now, folks, on this Tobago night here on Wednesday, the Tobago evening on Mindful Live. Are there any further questions or comments before I dive out? Or is that all for the evening? Would that be it for this evening? Yeah, Ria, what's the question? Yeah, what's the question? You start planning for it. What do you mean, Ria? That will be all. Thank you. Okay, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. What do you mean planning for elections, Ria? What are you talking about planning for planning what for elections? Planning videos that I'm going to do for elections? Because if you're talking about me jumping in elections to lose my money, for me to lose my money, forming a party. Listen, Ria, I think I'm much more effective trying to talk. I don't need to form a party. We could talk. I could talk without having a party. I could hold meetings without having a party. Forming a party sounds like a recipe for disaster, personally, for me. So you ain't forming the party. We in a party already. We in the mindful party. The mindful party is going on right now. That's what's going on. We're here chilling in the mindful party. That's the only party we need. Form a party. Form a party for what reason? What would be gained from that forming of a party? All right, folks. Any further questions? It seems not. So I will be heading out and I will see you guys again for the next Mindful Live tomorrow evening at around 9:15 p.m., the usual time. And tomorrow evening, there's a Jack Warner interview that I want to go through. A Jack Warner interview that was some good stuff. Tomorrow, we might go through that Jack Warner interview. Can I get a jersey? Well, the jerseys have always been for sale. I don't talk about it much lately, but the jerseys and merchandise has always been for sale. There are also Mindful caps if you look right about there. So you'd see those Mindful caps. They are for sale. If you'd like a jersey or a cap, just hit me up in my DMs. My DMs are open and available. Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, my email, anywhere you would like to hit me up. Also, as I've said many times before, we want beanies. Oh, I'm working on that actually. As we said, as I've told you, mindful education learning pods have been launched. What the learning pods are pod learning, small classrooms, well, small groups. The idea is we're using homeschooled style approaches to learning. It's not intention to have that classroom feel. It's intended to have a more homeschool style feel, where with a smaller group, the groups generally are around 6 maximum size, so that each student is able to get familiar with their tutor, with their teacher. The students are able to get familiar with each other, and that familiarity allows them to be much more open in their learning, much more comfortable, much more curious, ask a lot more questions, and it's going well. If you are interested in the mindful learning pods, the mindful pod learning, mindful education, mindful with 2 L's underscore education over there on Instagram, you can head over and follow us. Yes, Ria, ask your question by all means. You can head over there and follow us. Oh, you're up. The information on how to register and how to contact us is over there on that Instagram. If you are so interested, you can head over there and by all means sign up. We have age groups starting from as early as preschool all the way up to CXC level. Even beside the pod learning, we also offer private tutoring services for pretty much all of the CXC and CAPE subjects. If you are interested in private tutoring, be sure to hit us up also. Yes, Ria, what's the question?
In having these classes for both primary and secondary school level, is it that you also deal with the registration of them for the relevant exams, i.e. SCA and CXE? Is it that this through the school? Does the school have like people get a candidate number and the examination center and whatnot and whatnot?
No, not yet. Here, I'll be open with the full intention of this. As the intention of this is to, even to some extent, have students who would go through entirely in this institution as learning fully. But as of now, we have no one at that level. For sure, like for example, my child is going to go through that. My child is going to go through fully through outside of the school system. But as of yet, we are not at that level. We do not have enough candidates that are interested in that. You're still, all of our students are still registered in schools where they would be doing the exams as registered in the school. What we are doing is we are running parallel to their schooling, and of course, we are covering similar topics that they cover in school, but also expanding on that. So, for example, mathematics, even for the early stages, we don't teach it as mathematics, we teach it as mathematics and logic. So we combine those factors to allow for a little different shade and a different understanding. We don't teach just English language. We teach English rhetoric and reasoning, ERR. So you're able to expand it a little wider. And to me, it gives context to learning. And as you get the context to learning, children learn better. That's what I've noted. Straight from primary to secondary. Yep. Correct. Any other question?
Hold on. In this, is it that you're only going to focus on these, I don't want to say like academic subjects, or is it that like is there any like trades and stuff, or just academic subjects?
Well, for the early primary, what we're doing right now, it's not only academic, but it's about learning. It's about education. So we touch on music. We do dominoes, the game dominoes. We do dominoes. We do Jenga. We do Connect Four. We do different games, logic-minded games. We'd be doing tool use, and as I said, music. So the aim is to allow education. Yeah, them frogs by real serious. The aim is to allow the context of education to shine there. So if you're learning about something, you're learning why this is important. So we would tie that indirectly to the trades also. The as we do more and more of the older learning pods, because particularly now most of the younger pods are filling up. But as we do some of the older learning pods, the idea also is to direct streamline and go directly into some of those fields where we could have some trade experts teach on that, because well, I'm into contracting, so getting trade experts is not a very difficult thing. Tool use sounds really interesting. Yes, it is. You see, for young children, something that you might notice here, listen, if you all get me talking on education, we could talk whole night here. For young children, something that you would notice, especially happening in the last couple of years, for young children, something that is happening is a lot of them aren't having the dexterity with their hand as they once did. You take a hammer, give the average 10-year-old and tell them pound a nail, and see how that is going to end up. And if you go back even 15 years and did that, the results would have been totally different. And those things, the simple things like dexterity and ease of movement on the body, helps your child to not get injured as easily. A lot of these children are being injured constantly by simple things because they're clumsy out there. They don't know how to control their body, how to control their limbs. They don't have even that basic level of athleticism, so they're getting injured easily. That's a whole other thing. But I think even that ties in with education also. So yes.
So another question.
Mm-hmm.
Another question, right?
Mm-hmm.
How many classes per day and how many hours?
As of now, the pods that we have running are one per week, because that's the demand of the teachers and not the teachers, the students as of now. One per week. But the one class is around 2 hours long. One session per week. As
So is it like one subject?
no, by all means not. Within that 2 hours, we go through oftentimes 4 subjects or less, according. learning pod, it's homeschool. And the idea is the students also kind of pull the lesson along. So as the students pull, the lesson is pulled along with them. It's not just the teacher dragging the students, but you're it's like you're fueling the students with the information, and their curiosity pulls them along as you fuel them with more information. So the length of all of the classes and how many subjects we cover isn't an exact thing. So, for example, one of the pods this week on Saturday, the Saturday pod this week covered, I think, 3 subjects. The pod previously went through 5 subjects in the same classes. So it's not the an exact thing every week, the amount of subjects done, but we go through all of the subjects as time progresses.
But there's a syllabus that you follow, basically.
Yes.
Just on your own timing. Or on the student's timing, I should say.
On the students' timing. And our,
And
just by the way, the structure of our classes aren't based on age. They're based, as I said, preschool, but then early primary, late primary, early secondary, late secondary. So we have mixed age groups also. That's on purpose. Mixed age groups. What you recognize in mixed age groups is the students help each other to learn, they pull each other up. You have students who feel seniority, which helps them to want to learn more so they could teach the juniors to them. You have students teaching students, which also allows the information to be transmitted faster, etc., etc. What do you think your max capacity would be? What do you mean max capacity in students per class? Right now we're trying to aim at 6 students. Now, as more and more students come in, what we do is we put students together. So it won't, the students that we want together in the same class would have similar learning techniques, learning styles. So classes per week. Oh, well, I don't know how many classes per week. For me individually, that might be, I don't know, 3 per day or something like that. But it's not only me there. So it's not only me doing it. But I don't know what's my upper limit on classes per week. I guess we'll find out eventually. Yeah. Any further questions?
Yeah. Even with even with it being homeschool, would there ever be any point in time that you do bring them out together?
What
like
do you mean?
For a field trip, or like to go and learn something like how to plant corn or something? I don't know.
That is, you're talking about my full intentions there. Yes, of course. That's what we aim to do. As we expand more now, this is also based on expansion and desire and who the parents that would be willing to engage in that. But as we expand more, that is the intention, that especially for different subject areas, if we're going to talk about something to do with farming and agriculture or biology, it would make sense if we could actually be there in a place that you could learn about that. So yeah, that is the intention, and that would be much easier because as we said already, the classes are around 6 people. So being able to maneuver that smaller group of people would be much easier. Now, by the way, also with this, all of the classes aren't only located in my location. Right now, as it stands, all of my classes are by me. I have a spot where we're doing all of the classes there. It's in Central, Waterloo. But we also have offered, if you have the intention and you have 6 students that are interested in starting a pod, we will supply the teacher or the tutor and of course the material and the syllabus, and we would be willing to start that even at your own location. So you could start your own pod with your own students on your location, and we will send the teacher, the tutor, and the work to you for that. So if you are interested, as I said, Mindful Education over there on Instagram. Further questions? I'm taking questions still. That's it?
I think that's it for now.
Great.
Today, if I have more, probably tomorrow.
No, battery isn't dead. Battery isn't dead. I'm gone? That's news to me. I didn't even know I was gone. I thought I was here still. All right, folks. It was nice. I will see you guys for the next Mindful Live tomorrow at 9:15 p.m. around that time, as per usual, Until then, peace.